Hi guys, welcome to Rousey Audio again. You might remember this room. This might be the final video from this room. Most of you remember that I made this into an audio room. Well, life changes, things happen, so this room will now be converted into something else, and I'm going to pack up my stuff and set it aside until I get another room. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about top 6 CD players that I can recommend, that I have heard, that I think is better than most of the other ones that I've heard. Well, all of them other ones I've heard. I have far from heard every CD player out on the market that have ever been made. So there might be some other golden nuggets out there that people might think is better. But these 6 is something that I have very good experience with. And to me, they have sounded really good, better than most. And that's why I'm talking about these. There's 5 for hi-fi and for your home use, and there's 2 that is kind of like one, but because they're so close to each other, that are for car audio. I included one car audio here, and let's start with the car audio right off the bat, okay? If you're looking for a good CD player for your car audio, and you don't want all these flashy things, you just want a single DIN. And you want the best sound quality. You don't need all the flash and bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff. You just want to focus on the sound. You're building a sound quality system in your car. You want to go for the Denon DCT-A1 or the DCT-A100. Those 2 CD players are by far the best sounding CD players I have ever heard in the car audio settings. And I have heard tons and tons of CD players for car. I started my car audio adventure back in 1988, 89. And since then I have heard most of it. I have owned about 40, 50, 60 different CD players myself. Everything from Panasonic, Clarion, JVC, Denon, Kenwood, Pioneer, you name it. JVC, did I say that? And to me, when it comes to sound, because these are not flashy at all, and trust me, when it comes to sound and sound only, these cannot be beaten by, these are ahead of everyone by miles. So remember that if you want the best CD player sound in your car, the Denon DCT-A1 or the DCT-A100. Those are the 2 I would go for. They're pricey, and of course they're getting old, so they might need some TLC or service, but you know what? Most of them that are on the market for sale have already been serviced. Like I said, they can be pricey. Expect to pay somewhere between $500 and $1,000 for them. So that was the car audio. That's out of the way. The 5 remaining CD players are strictly for home. And I'm going to start in, and I was thinking to myself, do I do them in random order or do I rank them? And I've tried my best to rank them as best as I can. So in 6th place, well, in 5th place it will become now because it's 5. In 5th place, we have the Onkyo Sea 7030. And that's one of the newer models, the newer CD players. And I'm going to find it here because I have it up. I already put it up here. So I can give you all the details on it. Thank God for internet. The Onkyo C7030 was in the market between 2011 and 2017, so it's a fairly new one. I like the sound in it. I owned it for a little while, but I bought it used, and of course when you buy stuff used, things can happen. And I had it for like 6 months, and something started to happen with a mechanism to it. So that's why it is in the last place of the top 5 for hi-fi, because I expected it to last longer than that when it's not that old. the one I had. I think it had a label on the back saying, or the 2014 or something, man. And this is like a year and a half ago. So it's not that, it wasn't that old, and it already started to develop problems with the mechanism. So I just sold it very fast. What I can say is it has a 2-volt line out, which is pretty normal for most home CD players. Dynamic range was 100 dB. The signal to noise was 107 dB, and that is very respectable and very good. Like most CD players that have 100 dB and plus and more on signal to noise is good. It's a 24-bit, 192 kilohertz digital converter in it, and they used a Wolfson. It can play MP3, so that was a good thing. A lot of CD players and DVD players can be a little bit finical when you play burnt CDs, or like the CDR and the CDR-W. I didn't have too much problem with the Onkyo when it came to CDR. When it came to CDR-V, it was a little bit, it was a hit or miss. So, but I mean, it's a good CD player. Doesn't cost too much today, so it's one of the more affordable ones as well, and you can find them fairly easy. So that's in 5th place. In 4th place, I have the Sony CDP779ES. And the reason I have that in 4th is not because it's bad in any way, but it has a very good sound. And the same thing with that one. It started to develop problems. I had that one way back, longer back than the Onkyo, but it had some, mechanical noises. I don't know if that was just my CD player or if it's normal. It was one of the more noisiest ones when it comes to the mechanism. It was maybe the one that was the most sensitive of all of them. If it was standing on a surface that was subject to vibrations, I felt that the Sony ES model was, compared to the other ones that I've had, maybe a little bit more sensitive to vibrations. Had a good sound, I can't complain about that, but I don't think it was as good built as it's supposed to be, like the creme of the crop from Sony back in the day, the ES series. But I kind of feel that it wasn't like something special. So that's why I had that one in number 4. In in 3rd place, I have the Yamaha CDX2000, and let me tell you, I had a Yamaha CDX2000. I didn't buy it new. It was a couple of years old. I think I bought it around 1991, and they came out in around 1988, 89, somewhere around there. And it was a couple of years old when I bought it. And I had that one for years. Never gave me any problems with the mechanism or the tray or anything like that. It was very silent. Even when you open and close the tray, it was a very silent one. And I like the sound in that Yamaha. And Yamaha has always built stuff or made stuff that kind of have appealed to me when it comes to the design and the looks and the cosmetics. So I've always liked Yamaha in a way that way. And so the CDX2000 had a very good sound. This is why it's number 3. And let me tell you, the difference between number 3, 2, and 1, not that big. Not big at all. There's not much. So that's maybe more like a personal preference for me. The one thing about the Yamaha is that the digital converter, it has 2 digital converters. It's 18-bit, so it's not 24-bit, but it's 18-bit. But it has a dynamic range of 100 dB, which is very good. But where it really excel and becomes really good is in the signal to noise, where it has 118 dB. And that is pretty darn high if you compare that to other CD players. That means that you get a very good signal strength to go into your amp. Yes, it has a 2-volt line out. The total harmonic distortion was 0.002, so it has very little distortion. Came with a remote. It looks really good. I like the look on it. Google it and look it up. I love the look on the Yamaha CD2000. And it looks way better than the Onkyo and way better than the Sony. That's for sure. In second place, I have a Norwegian-built CD player, and probably no surprise that would be Elektrokompaniet. And it's the EMC or ECM. It's EMC1. EMC1 from Elektrokompaniet was in the market for quite a while. It was launched in 2000 and had a few upgrades. It was EMC1, and then I think it was EMC Series 2, and then it was this EMC 1 UP. And the UP had a bigger and more extensive upgrade than the other two. Very, very good. An Elektrokompaniet is not cheap. These are very expensive, even used. I had one for about a year. I got it for a fairly good price online. And I used it for a while, about a year, 13, 14 months, something like that. And this is about 4 or 5, 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I think it is. And I sold it because someone wanted that model and they gave me a fair offer on it, and I could not say no. I'm not married to most stereo. I buy and sell, and if I get a good deal on something, I buy it. If someone gives me a good offer, I'm willing to sell. So that's what I did. When it comes to the sound, it has a 24-bit, 96 kilohertz digital converter. Very good. The frequency response is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Very normal. The dynamic range is 100 dB. Again, very normal and very good. The signal to noise is not as high as the Yamaha. The Elektrokompaniet has only 100 dB, but when I say only, 100 dB is very respectable and very good. I like the looks of it way better than the other ones I've not talked about. And the sound to me is a little bit more detailed. I feel that it excels, maybe not in the lower bottom end, but from about 6,000, 4.5, 5,000 kilohertz up to about 20. I think it's more detailed and it has a little bit more refined sound than the other ones that I have talked about. And the looks are just stunning. It's a stunning CD player. You cannot go wrong with an Elektrokompaniet product, regardless. In spot number 1, I have 2 CD players, and they're sharing it. One because I had to do it, because they're my 2 favorites, both in looks, both in sound, and because you can get it for a better price than Elektrokompaniet. These are like 1/3, or in the worst case scenario, they're half the price. Best case scenario, they're 1/3 of the price. And that, of course, plays a huge role. If you could get the Elektrokompaniet for cheaper, yeah, it would probably be battling with Denon about the first place. And like I said, it's Denon. Denon is in first place. I have a very, very soft spot for Denon products, and especially the older stuff. Why have I taken 2 in here? Well, my very first experience in life with higher end audio when it came to CD players was one of these models. I heard it at a friend of mine's. A friend of mine, his dad had this CD player, and I just loved it so much. I thought it was so cool to look at, and the sound was amazing. And a few years later, when I became a little bit up in my teens, I got one. And it was a big thing back then, because this was released in 1986. And I think I had it like, I got my hands on it like in 88. Spring of 88. Maybe it was closer to Christmas of 88. I had it for a while, and then it was put in boxes, and after, because I moved and stuff like that, and it was where I moved to, I had neighbors that wasn't very into music, and it was wasn't very insulated, so I had to take a little bit considerations. So it was put in storage for a while, and then of course I had to join the military and stuff like that. So when that happened, I sold everything, because I didn't want to have things sitting around while I spent 2 years in the military, because I didn't just do my 1 year mandatory thing. I signed up to become a sergeant and do extra training and stuff like that, and so I had to, because they gave me that education, I had to serve an extra year. So those 2 years there. So when that happened, I've been looking for them ever since, because I want this one back. And I'm talking about the DCD1800, one of the best CD players from the 1980s, by far. It even beats what many say that the 80s was like a Sharp thing. I have a 1986 Sharp CD player here now, and I tell you, it skips, and it skips. If I put that one on, it doesn't take much. I can huff and puff on it, and it skips. The Denon did not have that skipping problem. Of course, if you stand beside it and you jump up and down and your floor is moving a little bit, yeah, you can create some skipping on. Most 80s CD players have a very well-known skipping problem. That wasn't addressed and fixed before 1990, 91, where they really got good on skipping. Of course, since the first CD player in 83, 84, that was released on the market, some of the first ones were really, really sensitive. They skipped and skipped and skipped. And for each year that went by in the 80s, of course, they improved it. So for each year that went by, so in 86, after 2-3 years, the skipping problem was less than it was in 83, 84. And then, of course, in 88, 89, and 90, it was even better. In 91, I felt that they really took a big leap forward to combat skipping, due to vibrations and surrounding things in the room. So the DCD1800, oh my god, if you can find one, just make sure that it works, because it's old. If you find one, most likely it will need a service. You probably have to adjust the cleaning and adjust the laser and check the pickup of how the CD mechanism is, because most of the time it is the laser and the mechanism that needs to have some work done. Now let me see the DC. Let me see if I found some on that one. Yeah, I did. I found some information on specifications. It had a digital converter. Back then it was called a PCM53JP-V. The thing with the Denon DCD1800, it had a frequency range from 5 Hertz to 20 kilohertz. Everyone else that I've talked about so far is 20 to 20K, okay? This one is from 5 to 20. Think about that for a while. That is why I put this one up there. Yes, the dynamic range is only like 95 dB, a little bit less than the hundreds on the other ones. The signal to noise is 96 dB. Not bad, but not as good as the other one. But still, that just means you have to turn up the volume a little bit more to compensate for that and stuff like that. The total harmonic distortion is 0.003, very low, very good. The channel separation is 94 dB, very good. Some of the other ones are closer to like 98, 99, 100, but 90, 94 on channel separations in 1986 was not bad. Remember this, these are numbers for an 86 CD player. The other ones are like in the late 90s and early 2000s and up to 2015 and 17. Again, a 2-volt line out. It weighed 8.9 kilograms. So it was fairly heavy for being a CD player. So DCD 1800, top notch. It's being beat by the other one that I'm coming to. And this is probably my favorite CD player of all times for home use. This is the benchmark that I feel. I have heard Yamaha, Onkyo, Cambridge, Sony, Electric Company, Arkham, you name it. I heard bunches of CD players. I'm sure there's someone that I haven't heard, but I've heard most brands because when I was younger, I used to go to all these hi-fi stores, the high-end stores, where I lived, and I went there and I listened and I checked out the equipment. So, and you know, we're talking about 80, 90, 100 brands easily between those 4 or 5 chains and stores. So, in the first place, and the best CD player that I have ever heard for home use is the Denon DCD S10. And you might ask me why. Well, here it comes. It had the alpha processing thing in it. And if you know Denon and the alpha processing, they use it in the car audio thing as well. And that's it made a, when it came out, it just knocked everyone else off the map. Denon was the king back in the 90s. They started in the late 80s, but in the 90s, very few could compete with Denon on both CD players, headphones, and you name it. Let me give you the specs here because these are worth bragging about. I have had a Denon DCD S10 personally. It's the CD player that I had for the most amount of years. I think I owned it for like 5 or 6 years. Moving again was the reason why I sold things, and I downsized, and I was like, I can get one later, and then it never happened again. Okay, specifications on the Denon DCD S10. And listen carefully. It has 4 digital converters. The 4 that they used was a PCM 1702J. Look it up. Very good converters. The frequency response, and this is where it takes the cake and then just knocks everyone else out of the park. Where most other CD players, old ones and new ones today, operates between, most of them are like 20 to 20K. Some are like 10 to 20K. Some are 15 to 20K, 18 to 20K. The DCD S10 has a frequency response from 2 Hertz to 20K. I say it again, from 2 Hertz. Okay? Dynamic range, 100 dB. So it's a step up from the DCD 1800 we talked about. Signal to noise, 118 dB. Combine that with a dynamic range of 100 dB and combine that with the 2 Hertz to 20K Hertz. We are talking about wowzers. You gotta hear it. You got to go out and get one of these. Total harmonic distortion. Remember, the other ones I talked about was like 0.002, 0.34. This one has a total harmonic distortion of 0.0018. The lowest distortion. Try and find someone else that has as low or even lower distortion combined with 118 dB in signal to noise and 100 dB in dynamic range. Now, channel separation. Remember, I was reading the other ones were like 96 to 100. This one is 110. And the higher the number, the better it is, okay? 10 kilograms, so it's fairly heavy. Came with a remote. Line output was 2 volt, as most others. So, and this one had the gold front. Back in the day, Denon released 2 different ones. They had the black front series, where they had tons of them. And they had a different series with a silver front. And gold front, sorry. The gold front was very often referred to as POA or POA series. They had them in amps, they had them in CD players, and they had them in receivers, and it was the higher end of Denon. I tell you, the Denon DCD-S10, if you want some of the best sounding stuff out there in CD players, vintage, middle-aged, and very, very new, the Denon is it. However, it's starting to become old, and of course, with age comes wear and tear. So, if you buy one, make sure you send it off somewhere to have it serviced. Make sure the laser works properly, make sure it's clean, and make sure that the tray and the mechanism is okay, that the motors are running, that they're lubed up, and all that stuff. And just make an overall service on it. When you buy used stuff, used audio gear is just like buying a used car. You need to have it serviced every now and then. Very important. Most people don't know this, but CD players and amplifiers and speakers and audio equipment lives in a very, very demanding environment. You know, today's houses and homes have this open solution thing where you can sit in the living room and look straight into the kitchen, or if you don't have an open solution, most of the time you have an open doorway. And you know, cooking grease and all that stuff, and dust, and if you have pets, you know, hair and all that stuff. And then you have seasonal changes like cold, hot. You know, you in the summertime, you, depending on where you live, but here, you know, you use ACs, and then in the wintertime, you blast the furnace, or you put on ovens or whatever to heat up your house. So these the equipment are taking a good beating, and of course they're being used. So take care of your equipment. So when you buy something used like this, if you go out and you want to say, okay, I'm going to take Rossi Audio's suggestion here, and I'm going to find myself a DCD S10, sorry, and you find one for sale, make sure that you have it serviced before you put in, because you can't trust sellers today. Sellers will say anything and everything to make you buy it, okay? They can say, oh yeah, we had it serviced, and it haven't been serviced. So spend an extra couple of $100, 100, 150, $200 to have it serviced and fixed up, and it's all good to go for another 3 or 4 or 5 years. But I tell you, the best CD player that I have heard sound-wise, and trust me, I have heard most of these CD players on many different speakers with many different amps hooked up. And the DCD S10, when I had that one, I had Dali speakers, I had Sir Vega speakers, I had Yamaha speakers, I had JBL speakers, and I even had a pair of Altec speakers. And I also had them. I also had it hooked up to amplifiers from Electrocompagnia, Cambridge, NOD, NID, Denon, Carver, and a bunch of others. And I tell you, it was the best combination that I have ever had and ever used and ever set up. So that's my number one, the Denon DCD S10. Look it up, Google it. It looks perfect, it looks good, looks clean, gold colored all the way around. You can't go wrong with it. As long as it's in good working condition, You cannot go wrong. So until next time, take care.